Hi everybody, my name is Emily and I'm on the events team at the Ann Arbor District Library. And today I'm going to be talking about the process of KonMariing and what that was like for me when I did it back in September of 2019. I thought this might be a helpful topic for folks because you might be spending a lot of time in your home right now and feeling like you're trapped with a lot of clutter and maybe noticing a lot of stuff that you have that you kind of forgot that you had. And you may be thinking to yourself, hmm, maybe I should sort through and get rid of some of this stuff. For those of you who aren't familiar with the an enormous cultural phenomenon of Marie Kondo and the life-changing magic of tidying up. That book, I think, came to the US from Japan probably in 2011. Tidying has been a craze in the US ever since. She has her own Netflix show where she shows you the process of going to clients' houses and helping them sort through the stuff that they don't no longer want. So the phrase that she uses to distinguish whether or not you want something is does this spark joy? Spark joy is the big one. So that's kind of her claim to fame. And I was really skeptical this about this process. I thought it was just kind of like a fad, and it definitely is. Like, don't get me wrong, it's definitely a fad. But basically, I reached a point with my own stuff where I felt that I really needed to do something different. I had a lot of clutter, and I just really felt kind of trapped with it. Like, no matter how much I cleaned, no matter how much I organized things, I just always ended up with giant piles of stuff sitting around. So eventually, last year, I decided to give it a try. Now, I've never actually seen her Netflix series, and I've only read her book once. Um, and, I think there are many ways to clean and declutter, so this isn't necessarily like an infomercial for KonMari in your house. There are many ways you can go about it. This was just the method that I chose. So I read the book, and there was a lot in it that I didn't feel applied to me or that I just didn't like. A lot of advice that I didn't want to follow. But there was a lot of good stuff in it. So, what I'm going to talk about is what I found useful in her work, what it was actually like to go through the whole process, and what it's like 8 months later. So, before I get started, I should say that I don't think it's a good idea to actually declutter or KonMari your house while you are under quarantine. This might seem like the perfect time because you might have some extra time on your hands, you're spending a lot of time at home, but I personally don't think that it's a good idea. The reason why is that the most effort involved is not actually sorting through your stuff. The biggest amount of effort you're going to expend is actually getting the stuff out of your house. And I'm going to talk about my experience with that. But it probably means that you're going to be taking a lot of stuff to thrift stores, to used bookshops and used record shops. And those places simply aren't open right now. And I think what you're going to find is if you try to KonMari now, you're going to have a lot of items that you don't want anymore that shouldn't be thrown in the trash or the recycling because they are good, but you're not going to be able to do anything with them. You're going to put them in boxes and bags, and they're just going to sit in your basement or your garage or wherever for a long time. But you can get started with some planning and visioning, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. Okay, so my story is that I was a graduate student at the University of Michigan, and I was a graduate student of English, meaning I had a lot of books and a lot of papers. About 5 years into my doctoral program, I made a major life decision. I knew that going into academia was not right for me. So I finished, I graduated, but I decided to pursue other career paths. However, it took a long time for my living space to actually catch up to the way that my life had changed. So even though I wasn't sitting at my desktop computer every day working on my dissertation, I wasn't teaching, I wasn't making reference to books all the time, I still had tons of books and papers sitting around that I would never use again. From beginning to end, it took me about 2 weeks, actually, I think exactly 2 weeks, to gather everything together, sort through it, get it out of my house, and reorganize the stuff that was left behind. By the end of the day, I think I'd probably gotten rid of probably 2/3 of my clothes, at least half of my books, maybe 60% of my books. And overall, I would say I had reduced my personal possessions by about 50%. Now, that was kind of a goal that I had in mind. I knew that I wanted to have a lot less stuff. I knew that I had a lot of stuff that I no longer wanted or needed. Um, but it wasn't like I was holding myself to a quota. I think a lot of people think that decluttering and tidying is about minimalism. It's just about paring your life down to the bare necessities for survival. And while minimalism is totally a thing and a lot of people are into it, that's not what I was looking for. My question, Marie Kondo, her question is, does it spark joy? My question is a little different. The way that I approached this was from a bit of a different place, which was, if I don't love something and if I don't need something, why do I have it? There might be lots of things that I love that I don't need, and there might be lots of things that I need that I don't love. But if I neither need it nor love it, why is it in my house? Planning and visioning is also another really important part of the process. So when I started out, what I did was I asked myself what I wanted, in particular, my office to look like. My tidying did affect some other areas of the house, but I was only going through my own stuff, so I was really focusing on my office and my possessions. And it was really my office that I wanted to transform. So I asked myself what I wanted my office to look like, what I wanted my office to feel like, and how I wanted to spend my time in my office. What did I actually want to do there? So as a graduate student, I had spent time in my office working on academic stuff, grading my students' papers, writing my dissertation, doing reading and writing for my seminars. That was the use to which the room was put. And so the room looked like a graduate student's room. The room had 3 bookcases, a desk, and 2 filing cabinets, and a CD tower. You guys remember CD towers? Oh my gosh. Right, this is not a big room, and I'm going to show you this room. It's not a big room. It's like maybe 8 by 12. And I just had so much stuff packed into it. So when I decided to Marie Kondo, I asked myself, well, what do I want to do in this room now? The answer was very different. I knew that I wanted to spend time in my office doing yoga. Currently, I didn't have enough room on the floor to do a lot of yoga poses because there was so much clutter. That was a big one. Another thing that I wanted to do in the room was knitting. And knitting was, while I could sit in the room and knit, there was so much clutter from so much other stuff that my knitting stash, my stash of yarn and my projects got really disorganized and cluttery. So it made it hard to find yarns to start a project and stuff like that. So I wanted to make things easier on myself as a knitter. And I also knew that I wanted to do bookbinding, that I needed to have a workbench for bookbinding that had enough room on it. And, I had been trying to do bookbinding on my desk as it existed, but my desk had so much clutter on it that it was really impeding my ability to do it. So once I answered those questions, I realized I needed to get a lot of furniture out of the room. If I had 3 bookshelves, 2 filing cabinets, a desk, and a CD tower in the room, and I wanted to do yoga, and I wanted to have a place for bookbinding, and I wanted my knitting supplies to be really organized, I just didn't have room for that much stuff. It needed to be a pretty clear space. So, one thing that you might have surmised about my office, for instance, is that I'm not sitting on a chair. I'm sitting on the floor. And I'm actually using a chair to support my computer. My chair, I didn't get rid of it. It's still here, but I use it to store things most of the time. I don't sit on a chair a lot in my office. That's not how I use my space. In this space, I'm either sitting on the floor, knitting or reading or whatever, or I'm standing at my desk. And another consideration too is, how do you want your space to feel? Which is really kind of like a wishy-washy, it's kind of a vague question to ask yourself. But I'll just say that this space has been really transformed for me. It used to feel very cluttered. It used to, like, my mind felt very cluttered when I was in it, and that's because there were books and papers everywhere. And there was just stuff everywhere, and it didn't feel like a calming space. It didn't feel like a clear space. It didn't feel like a refuge. So what I began to do then is I actually drew kind of like a very rough, not to scale, just bird's eye diagram of what my office looked like. And then I started doing some hypothetical diagrams about, okay, well, what do I want things to look like, and how do I want them to be arranged? And what I finally came up with is that I wanted to keep one bookshelf, my desk, and one filing cabinet. And that would open up the room a lot. And that is what I ultimately did. So basically, I was working from this place of, okay, I have to get rid of these pieces of furniture. I have to get rid of a filing cabinet, which means I have to get rid of a lot of papers. I want to get rid of some bookshelves, which means I have to get rid of some books. So having that plan that started from, well, how do I want to actually use the room? Then, okay, this is what I want the room to look like because this is how I want to use it. And if this is what I want the room to look like, here's what I have to do. Here's what I have to target. And now that I have cleared it out, this sounds really woo, this sounds wherever, but I think it's true that because my space is clear, my mind is a lot clearer. That when I'm in this space, I feel a lot more calm. I'm not feeling as busy or rushed. It's like a really quiet feeling that I have when I'm in here. And that makes it a wonderful place for me to be able to retreat to and spend time at the end of the day. I basically spent 2 solid weeks in which my main focus was KonMariing. Like, I would spend all weekend doing it. I would come home from work in the evenings and work on it. What that looked like was sorting, which was actually pretty much the quickest part of the process. And then, sorting what I wanted to keep from what I wanted to discard. But then you get to the larger process, which is sorting through the stuff that you're discarding. What can be resold? What should go to thrift shops? What needs to be put in the recycling bin? What needs to be put in the trash? That was the biggest expenditure of time and energy right there. And then finally, I reorganized everything that I still owned. I think the thing that I most found useful and appreciated about Marie Kondo's method was the order in which you sort through things, and also the fact that you're sorting through entire categories of things at once. And that's the part of the process that I would totally do again and that I would recommend to other people. So if you're not familiar, so say you want to sort through your clothes, and you might have some clothes that are in your bedroom closet and your wardrobe. You might have some clothes in another closet. You might have some clothes in storage, maybe just in boxes somewhere. You might have clothes in the closet by the door where you keep your coats and hats. And basically the idea is that you're not going to go from room to room to room and sort all the clothes by room. You're actually going to take all of your clothes in your house and you're going to put them in one place. And you're going to sort through them that way. Now, I don't have a ton of clothes, so it wasn't a problem for me to get everything together. For someone who has a lot of clothes and it might feel really overwhelming to sort through, you might divide things up into categories. And I think that's true for anything. So say you've got a ton of books, you've got hundreds and hundreds of books, and you're really overwhelmed. Then what you might do is go around the house and collect all of your fiction books and sort through those one day. And then get your nonfiction books and sort through those the next day. In any case, getting all of the type of an item together, I think it gave me a lot of clarity about what I actually had, which was in some cases more than I thought I had. And it also really helped me see what I appreciated about the things that I really liked and what wasn't essential for me anymore to keep. So that's kind of like big tip number one is all of one type of an item, gather it all together and go through it all at once. The other thing was the order that she recommends, which I followed, and it really worked well for me. So she says that you should sort through clothes first. The reason why is that it's the easiest. Clothes are really replaceable. If you throw out an old t-shirt, it's easy enough to find another one, whether you're getting it at a thrift store or you're buying it new. So you start basically with the things that are easiest to sort through and go to the things that are hardest to go through. So clothes, and then books, and then papers, and then miscellaneous items. So this could be stuff like your junk drawer, it could be your hobby supplies, things like that. And so I split that up into a few different categories and did those over the course of a few days. Like, for instance, I did all of my knitting stuff on one day. And then only after you've gone through all those things, then you go through your sentimental items, your toys from childhood, your children's stuff that you still have. Maybe your children have moved out. And basically the idea is that by the time you get to the sentimental stuff, which is much harder to sort through because you feel like, oh, how can I give any of this up? By the time you get to that sentimental stuff, you've already gone through all of your other stuff and you've got a really good sense of what it is you want to keep and why. Okay. Now, one of the most important places for Marie Kondo is actually your closet, which is not what I was expecting. But she's like, your closet really is your special place. And you should feel free to decorate your closet however you want. And also you should put things in your closet that you might not have thought of putting in there before. One of those really big ones being a bookshelf. I ended up putting a bookshelf in my closet and it was kind of amazing. So I'm going to show you my closet. And this is just honest to God what my closet looks like on any given day since I have KonMari. It's not like a pretty closet. It is not an apartment therapy closet, okay? But this is what my closet looks like. My closet I used to not even be able to open these doors all the way because of how much clutter there was. I never wanted to look in the closet because it just had all this junk in there that I never used. Now I use my closet all the time. During the warmer months, I actually keep the doors open because I like it. Okay, so here we go. Here's the big reveal. Okay, as I said, not super pretty, but here it is. So these are all of my hanging clothes. This is it. Anyone who knows me is going to laugh at the amount of flannel that's here, but that's what I kept because that's what I love. Here's my bookshelf. So I actually was able to take all of my books and condense them onto this bookshelf. And that felt really good. And moving this bookshelf into this closet felt amazing. And you know, honestly, one advantage of having your bookshelf in your closet is that you don't have to dust it as often. So some other things, right? Like sitting on my bookshelf, I have some toy dinosaurs. At the end of the process, when I actually went through all of my sentimental things, I had this big box of dinosaurs that was left over from when I was a kid. And I got rid of most of them. I took most of them to the thrift store because I knew that children would be able to use them and enjoy them. But I did keep the ones that were the most special to me, which means I kept, I think maybe 5 or 7 of them. So this is a dinosaur I've had since I was 3 years old. This was one of the very first dinosaur toys that I got. And I just have him sitting right here on my bookshelf because that brings me joy. And that's how I decorate my closet. Up here, I have, this is basically my knitting stuff up here. So these are boxes of yarn. This is a folder of patterns. These are some projects that are in progress. This is mostly storage for a lot of my supplies like needles. I have, as you can see, more yarn over here. So I actually didn't end up getting rid of that much yarn, which is good because I'm a knitter. But I was able to make the room for it that I wanted to make because I wanted to prioritize knitting. I also want to show you a couple of my very favorite things about my office space now. The first is this basket right here. And this is not a Mari Kondo idea. This is just a something that I came up with. I realized that if I'm going to be using notebooks or working on knitting projects or whatever, that I wanted to have a place where I could put all the things that I'm currently working on and that it would be portable so I can take this downstairs if I want to. This has become super important since I started working from home. So right now this basket has the book that I'm reading, the notebooks that I'm using, it's got my phone, it's got my headphones, it's got my writing implements, it has a crochet project here. So this is just kind of all my stuff that I'm working on right now. It's contained. I can take it downstairs with me when I want to and bring it back upstairs. The other thing that I really love now about my office is this hanging organizer. Now I did not buy this when I Marie Kondoed. In fact, I bought this many years ago and installed it when we first moved into this place. However, I thought it was going to be this really, really nice organizer for my office supplies, but it ended up just getting filled with a bunch of junk that I never used, and that literally collected dust. I mean, things that I didn't use for years. Anytime there was like a trinket or odd and end, I would just stick it up here and forget about it. I knew that when I redid this office, that I wanted it to be a good place for bookbinding. And so what you're seeing here is these are all of my bookbinding tools. So pretty much almost everything that I use for bookbinding is here. My rulers and straight edges, my scissors. I have boxes that are full of the smaller implements that I use, my glue, my brushes. All my bookbinding stuff is here. Now, sure, like it might come off of this thing and spend a couple of days on my desk while I'm in the middle of a project, but at the end of the day, it's very easy to put it back on here. And honestly and truly, this thing has never become cluttery. And it's stayed just as well organized as you see it now. It's super easy to keep tidy and organized, and it's really just a joy to use it. So the big questions then are, did I relapse? Have I relapsed at all? And is there anything I regret after having KonMari'd? And the answer to those is mostly no. Is it possible to relapse? Question number one. And that's what Marie Kondo always says, is that her clients never relapse. Now, I do find that hard to believe, but having gone through it, I do think that it's hard to relapse. The reason why is that when you get rid of a lot of your stuff, there's just no place for clutter to be. Like when you've gotten rid of so many things that there is a place for everything, then clutter just isn't an issue anymore. Of course, my office gets cluttery sometimes. Sometimes I'm in a rush and, I leave stuff on my desk for a few days, while I'm in the middle of a big project or I'm just having a busy week. But the difference between now and before when I KonMari'd is that I can put everything away because there's a place for everything to go. And I also think that one thing that Marie Kondo says that's kind of buried in the book, she talks about people not relapsing, but tidying is not something that you just do once. Tidying is something that you might do once every 6 months or once every year or 2 years. I will tell you that, right, I've only done it once so far. I do plan on doing it again in the fall because I have a place for all my stuff right now, but it is getting to be kind of on the border of a little cluttery, and I know there's some things that I have that I don't need and that I don't love. So I am going to go through that process. And then there's the question of whether or not I have any regrets. The answer is really mostly not. There are very few things that I have gotten rid of that I felt later that, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Very few things. In fact, I know that I've had those moments, but I can't even remember right now what the things were. And I will also say something, and I don't think that that Marie Kondo actually addresses this, but I will say that, when you're getting all your stuff out of all your closets and drawers and things like that, and you're sorting it into different piles, it is easy to accidentally dispose of something that you meant to keep. So just keep that in mind, and just try to be vigilant about it. I'm pretty sure that there are 1 or 2 items that I'm like, I never would have gotten rid of that. I never would have KonMari'd it. But I don't have it anymore, so I must have accidentally gotten rid of it. But in general, no, I don't have regrets. I'm really happy with my office. I'm really happy with the amount of stuff that I have, and I'm surrounded by stuff that is important to me. Okay, so what were the parts of the book that I didn't find as useful? People get really hung up on the folding. It's actually the storage stuff. So Marie Kondo is really into vertical storage, meaning that anything that you might have lying flat, like say a book, you should be standing it up on edge. If you have your t-shirts lying flat in your drawer, you should fold them in such a way that they're standing up on edge. And in a lot of cases, it preserves space and it also helps you see what you have. I understand why she says this, but honestly, I feel like once you have tidied your home and sort of decluttered your stuff, you get to choose how you store it. You can see I don't have them arranged in any particular order. I have a lot more clothes than that, by the way. They're in a wardrobe that I'm not going to show you because I'm not going to show you my folded clothes. No, they're fine. They're just folded clothes. On the other hand, Something she doesn't really talk about is storage of papers. I mean, she does talk about it, but like I have a lot of papers to store because I use a lot of paper for bookbinding. So a lot of it is like decorative paper, as well as text paper, and there's just a ton of it. And I was like, I wish there were a way that I could vertically store paper so I didn't have it sitting around in stacks. And then I was like, oh, that's what a filing cabinet is. And so now I have this amazing, wonderful filing cabinet drawer that is full of my decorative and text weight papers. And it's been so wonderful to use and keep organized for bookbinding. And also for my larger sheets of paper that I can't store in a filing cabinet, I have them stored vertically leaning up against my desk. And that system has worked really well. So I think it's worth exploring her ideas and seeing what really resonates with you and what doesn't. So I hope you found this helpful. If you've been curious about whether or not a massive decluttering is right for you, and whether or not specifically the KonMari method is right for you. And happy and safe quarantine.